Hello, good evening. Hello, Sylvester. Williams. Thank you. Amber Platform. Leonga Williams. Jackie Salifu, Franklin, Lemus, Eric. Hi, comrade, what's going on? And hello, Eric Brown, thank you for tuning in. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, Franklin. I'm doing great. How about you? Thank you, Diodene, just joining us. And Vanessa, thank you. From Baghdad, exactly. And I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are tuning in this evening. I want to take a moment to thank all of you. If you just join in, please share. It is important that we share. Thank you, Williams. Thank you, Ralph, for joining in. If you just join in, please share. Here again, my name is Fonton Daniel. I will be speaking live here from the great state of Texas. I'm broadcasting from Facebook and YouTube. So both ways, if you are on Facebook or you are on YouTube, you should be able to get me live. And I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are tuning in this evening. Here again, my name is Fonton Daniel. And I will be speaking here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. I want to thank all of you that are tuning in this evening. I know some of my brothers and sisters that probably be sleeping in Europe and because of the time differences. But however, we are able to get Diodene from Baghdad. And thank you for tuning in. And if you briefly indicate below where you are, if you're here in the United States, thank you for tuning in. If you are in Ground Zero, if you are in La Republique, if you are in elsewhere in African countries, or if you are in Europe, I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are tuned in this evening for the thank you, Nate, for joining in. And one thing I would like you, if you are on my Twitter account, could you immediately like or subscribe? Because that's how we share informations. When I am on, you should be able to get signal. If you are on my YouTube, so also subscribe, because there are certain informations that may be on my YouTube that may not be on my Facebook, likewise. And so you make sure you subscribe to my YouTube account and keep the information moving, keep the momentum moving. And thank you, Alex, for joining in. Thank you, Robert, for joining in. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Tracy, thank you for joining in. Thank you. And please briefly just indicate below where you are, and I thank you for tuning in. Here again, I will be speaking live here from the great state of Texas here in the United States, and I want to thank all of you that are tuning in. Remember that I broadcast from YouTube and my Facebook. And remember to subscribe, and thank you for tuning in. Here again, my name is Foto Daniel. I will be speaking live from the great state of Texas here in the United States. All right, I think it's it take 1 minute. From Paris. That's wonderful, Robert from Paris. Thank you. All right, thank you. We have Richard. Thank you for joining in. We have Paul Frey for joining in. All right. Before we start, I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are tuning in this evening, and I will be speaking live here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States, and I will be broadcasting on my Facebook and my YouTube. Remember, when you're my YouTube account, make sure you subscribe, and it is important that you got the information. Thank you, Silas, for joining in. All right. I want to take a moment to thank the United States government. United States government is a very important government on earth, on the planet. It is efficient. It is a government that is based on the rule of law. And so I want to take a moment to thank Nikki Haley. She has been elected as a United States permanent representative to the United Nations Security Council. I'm sure with her leadership, they will bring some changes within the corrupted center of the United Nations. And we thank Nikki Haley for his election in the month of September as the leader of the Security Council for the month of September. And I think with her excellent skills and leadership will bring a dynamic change to that dysfunctional organization called the United Nations. It is imperative that the United Nations need a strategic reform, without which that is a crumbled society, and that it has deviated from the original objective of the United Nations, and now it become a crumbled organization. I hope Nikki Haley, his leadership skill, will be able to reform and transform the Security Council that has been led by people without a vision. And so that is why, but I will touch on that area later on this conversation. But before we dive into this, I want to talk about the breaking news. And this breaking news is more specifically to the Ambazonian that is currently serving in La Republique. The Ambazonian citizens that are serving in La Republique military. This message is for you. I know we have been talking. There is a high-level plan within the La Republique military, and it's on a suicide mission to kill and destroy the citizens of Ambazonia. The purpose of their suicide mission was orchestrated by the high-level La Republique military, and the purpose of their suicide mission is to carry on a genocide in the Southern Cameroon territory. And that mission is orchestrated. And in the plenary session of that particular meeting that was held, most of the top-ranking Anglophones of the Southern Cameroon, now Federal Republic of Ambazonian, were not invited in that agenda. They were not participating in that meeting. So it was strictly La République and those of the French-speaking, and mostly, especially those of the Bétis origin. And so it was highly orchestrated and selective members of the Bétis system in a circle. And so the plan that was decided in that meeting, it was that there's going to be a plan that Anglophone, especially the Anglophone speaking, that are serving in La République, will be assigned to that suicide mission in the northern region and southern region, especially the territory of Ambazonian. And the mission was clean and clear that they are going to be execute that mission without fear or favor. They're going to make sure that the citizens are immediately eliminated and shot and buried as soon as they arrive in the territory of Ambazonian. This plan was executed and was signed by the high-level military personnel within La République and in their invasion, in their planned suicide invasion in the Federal Republic of Ambazonian. The plan was to execute it at midnight. So as from 12 a.m., electricity will be shut down in the Southern Cameroon in the Federal Republic of Ambazonian territory, which means electricity will be shut down. And in doing so, then they will execute their missions. So there will be a special force that will specialize in burial. So immediately one is shot, they make sure that they clean the environment and make sure that no one is aware of this plan. And this plan is carried out and it is highly specific. And military will be deployed in all areas of the Ambazonia, especially the area that is highly populated. And so the mission is to be strictly and eliminate all the boys and those of the matured girls that have some level of physicness. They have some physical fitness. So if you fall in that category, you will be part of that victim that La République is planning to eliminate in the Southern Cameroon territory. And so this plan execution by the high level of the military of La République in eliminating the Anglophone Southern speaking that are fighting for their own elimination, their own sovereignty. Remember that the Southern Cameroon has already declared their sovereignty and they are no longer taking any instruction from La République. And so in doing so, La République is planning to eliminate all the boys, especially those of high level, and that is why they were simple. They want the school to resume so as to enable them to target schools, and targeting schools where there is boys, a quite number of boys that will be attending, and so therefore they will immediately surround the school and pick up the boys and immediately execute it. There will be a disposable vehicle that will be immediately available, and that will be charged with dispose of the body that have been executed. And so because school has not been effectively as they had planned, and they are finding a difficulty because they believe that when the school resumes, it will give them, because that's where they could easily find a number of boys in that particular school. And so they immediately have some strategic military that will be established. Their essence is to immediately eliminate those bodies and immediately be trashed as soon as possible. And so this execution plan will be commanded by the Bétis high-level military personnel to ensure that the effectiveness and the execution of the plan. The essence of having a Bétis to ensure that the plan was executed as indicated. And the part B of that plan, The part B of that plan was that they're going to have a 5-to-1 assignment. What does 5-to-1 assignment mean? A 5-to-1 assignment means in an army of 5 personnel, 1 will be an Anglophone, and 4 will be Francophone. So a 5-to-1 plan, it means in a group of 5 personnel, they will have 4 Francophones and 1 an Anglophone. What that means, once there's a plan, after the suicide mission is complete, and the Anglophone whom they consider as a potential to release all the planned action that was executed, he will also be executed immediately, right away, and dispose the body. That is what 5-to-1 implies on the plan of La Republique in a suicide mission to the Southern Cameroon territory. So how can you, as the Southern Cameroon military, and that is why I have asked them to immediately leave La Republique. It is imperative that if you are an Anglophone speaking and you're currently serving in La Republique, I can assure you that your time may be narrow. Your time is narrow. So you will be eliminated. That is the plan. And that plan was planned within a high-level personnel of La Republique. And no Anglophone was member of the high-level plan. And so therefore, I am bringing this attention to the Anglo-Saxon or citizens of Federal Republic of Ambazonia that are currently serving in La Republique. And so if you have your relative that is serving in La Republique, I assure you that please make sure you have good contact with him and make sure that he leave the military of La Republique, because there is a planned execution on the way within the high level and highly classified information from the La Republique military. And that plan was secretly planned, and no one has been able to obtain the clear document of that plan, because they understand that this plan has been reviewed several times when they had such a meeting. So I therefore call on all the Anglo-Saxon serving in La Republique. I have encouraged you, it's time to leave La Republique military. So if you have your relative, as I repeat, if you have your relative that is serving in La Republique, his or her days are numbered, because the planned suicide mission by the neighboring country La Republique to carry on in the Southern Cameroon territory, the mission is to eliminate the Southern Cameroon Ambazonian, especially the youth. And that is why they were so highly emphasized that school should resume. And so when school resumes, the target area will be the boys' dormitory. Because the boys' dormitory is where they have those boys that they participate. That some may have the sympathy participating in this Ambazonian liberation movement. And so therefore, by targeting the school and arrive in that particular location as from 12 midnight. Once they arrive as from 12 midnight, the plan is to cut off electricity, eliminate electricity power supply to that particular area. And as soon as they eliminate the power supply of electricity, and that is when they carry on the suicide mission. There will be a special van that is highly decorated that will be in charge of eliminating the bodies that are being executed right away. And so that is the plan orchestrated by the high-level military of La Republique. And so therefore, I am bringing this attention for fellow Ambazonians. This is imperative that we take this as a matter of urgency. It is imperative that we take this as a matter of urgency against the La Republique brutal regime. With respect to the Ambazonian, fellow brothers and sisters, we have reached a high level that La Republique is not a government that we can live to function together. And I encourage you that we need to join the movement so that we can eradicate La Republique from the Southern Cameroon, and we need to have a government that represents us. Because in doing so, we can be able to build a lasting sovereignty of the people of Ambazonian. Later this afternoon, I talk about the Comoros stages of dying. And that is why, after speaking about the urgent breaking news, I am going to talk about the Comoros theory of dying. The Comoros theory of dying describes 5 stages of dying. Many people will go through those sequences. We go through the 5 sequences of dying. And that include denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So Comoros is an important theory that describes the 5 stages of dying. And those 5 stages of dying, and it just aligned them in the order of sequence: denial, anger, bargaining, and depression. Why is it important in this theory is important in the Federal Republic of Ambazonian? Well, it is clear. We, the citizens, after the past 56 years, we have acknowledged that we have been unable to live with La Republique. We have demonstrated and in clear terms how we can live with La Republique. And each of those terms they have failed in absolutely, and not to respect the minimum that we are willing to accept, and under leadership we can work together with La Republique. And we have come to the conclusion that we must unfreeze ourselves from La Republique, and by declaring our nations as a sovereign nation. We are not simply declaring, we simply restore, because it was already declared by the United Nations in the on April 1961. So the United Nations declared the independence of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia in 1961. We have been cohabiting with La Republique for the past 56 years. And we have come to the conclusion that we cannot live with La Republique. And last October, our leadership has declared or restore our independence. And by restoring our independence, because that independence, we were cohabiting with a neighboring country, La Republique. And so by restoring, we are now no longer be part of La Republique. And we are making this statement clear. We are no longer part of La Republique. And so any citizens of Ambazonia that is attempting, speaking like if it's speaking on behalf of the Southern Cameroon in La Republique, you are making an error. You are making a mistake. So we will use every avenue, every aspect that we can, and to ensure that our independence is maintained. La Republique is in the stages of Comoros stages of dying called denial. They have been in denial and in anger stages. They go in between denial and anger stages. In denial, they fail to recognize that we are now a nation. In the Comoros stages of denial, they failed in absolute terms to acknowledge that by the 1st of last October that our sovereignty was declared, and that we and our restoration of our sovereignty, and that we will no longer honor any respect instruction coming from La Republique. And so because of that, La Republique is in the stages of denial. Because they're in the stages of denial, and the person in the stage of denial doesn't acknowledge that he is at the stage of dying. Because when once someone is in denial, He's just wondering. He cannot believe the reality that I am dying. And so Koba-Rose described this theory in a more efficient and effective way. That when person is dying, he is absolutely denied that I don't think I am dying. I don't think I am ready to die because I am not dying. I am not sick. So La Republique is in denial stage. And in doing so, it seeking ways to collaborate with a certain individuals. For example, when someone is dying, that particular individual will seek to apologize to a certain individuals and asking for forgiveness. And so, La Republique, by declaring war in Ambazonia, their anger stage, their anger has boiled to a high level. And because it has boiled to the high level, they can't accept the reality. And so that is why I encourage our boys that negative feelings, those individuals that misconstrue the ideology and the philosophy of citizens of Ambazonia. Remember, we are fighting for corrupting system that has eaten deeply into the La Republique and has begun to expand into our own territory. And that is why we, the citizens of Ambazonia, is ready to fight and defend our territory and maintain the sovereignty of Ambazonia. And now, how does La Republique engage in the Koba-Rose theory of dying? Now they are in another stages of called bargaining. Bargaining, La Republique is asking that we should accept just a common federal state and they will allow us to do whatever we can. So they are now bargaining because they have finally acknowledged that we, the Ambazonian, are now moving with our sovereignty. And so because they can't accept the reality, they're beginning to bargain that just accept the federation. We are going to work things out so that federation will be the best system. No, we are not bargaining for, according to the Koba-Rose stages of dying. Because when a dying person reaches at a state of bargaining, he doesn't accept the reality. But he still believes that there is something they can do to avert from dying. So La Republique is in a bargaining stage. Say, well, let's just accept a federal system. A federation will allow you to decide what you want, and we will also be part of you. So we don't expect you to leave, and that is the Koba-Rose stages of bargaining. And this theory is more effectively if you analyze it and you relate it to La Republique. So La Republique is in these stages of bargaining that the people and the citizens of Ambazonia should just simply accept a federal system of government. Why do you expect us to accept a federal system of government? No, we don't need a federal system of government because you are a sovereignty. Your independence was declared by the United Nations in 1960. And in the subsequent year, 1961, the independence of Southern Cameroon was also declared. But the fact that we choose to cohabiting doesn't give La Republique a legality over the citizens of Southern Cameroon. And so because of this, and I saw the Koba-Rose theory of 5 stages of dying, it's more effectively if you plug into La Republique and the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. So Koba-Rose theory of dying is the most efficient and effective way. When you plug into those stages, you will realize that La Republique is going through those stages. It's going through those stages of dying. And because they are going through those stages of dying, they are now in the bargaining stage. And in the bargaining stage, they will ask for United Nations send representatives that we are doing effectively. We are working hard to ensure that we collaborate with the Anglophone speaking so that we can have a federal structure of government. But unfortunately, we disagree because our sovereignty, we are a sovereign nation. The fact that we choose to cohabiting with La Republique doesn't give La Republique an upper hand control of the citizens of Ambazonia. And now they move to the 4th stages called in depression. Koba-Rose believe that when the person, after bargaining and can be able to gain the acceptance, now they began to feel depressed. So So La Republique is dispersed. La Republique is dispersed. Now they're asking for Russia. They're asking for China to borrow money to invest in the Southern Cameroon. So a person who is in the stages of depression, be careful, because that particular individual is committed to suicide. So it's a suicidal. When the person reaches at the stages of depression, so they are suicidal. So therefore, I am speaking that the federal citizens of Ambazonian, be careful of the suicide of La Republique in our southern territory. So you got to watch, be careful, each individual, because a person that is in the stages of depression is in a suicide mission. So La Republique is in a suicide mission. And so they will use every available suicide, even though they are dying. They want to acknowledge that they are dying. Because they are in the process of dying, they can destroy every part of the world. And so people with suicide that have reached depression moment, only probably Xanax or those who did psychiatry, those who are psychiatry will be able to provide one particular drug that will be capable to deal with individual with depression. And that is why you see that poor are frequently in and out the hospital, because they are all in depression mood. And so we watch very careful, and those with depression. And so citizens of Ambazonia, so it is time we mobilize ourselves, because when La Republique is in a depression move, so be careful, because when a person is in suicide, you have to pay attention. You have to look for clue. You have to watch behavior, because behavior can signal you that the person is in depression move. So our citizens of Ambazonia, watch this very closely, because when La Republique is in depression mode, it is easy for them to bomb any area in our territory. And so that is why we have to pay close attention, monitor person with depression mood, and how their behavior, and be able to counteract those behavior. Because even within their surrounding, you have within the ministerial level of La Republique, within the department of whatever, the terrorist defense department, they are in depressed mood. They thought that there is a solution that can come, there will be an imaginary. So the people with depression, they have an imaginary mind. They believe internally that there is special vision that can happen overnight and give them power. And so therefore I am relate this with the people that are depressed. You have to pay particular attention to individuals that are depressed, or those who are in depressed mood. And so since La Republique is in a depressed mood, so we have to take advantages, especially those in depressed mood, because the way of processing information can be very troublesome. And so therefore I am bringing this attention to the fellow citizens of Ambazonia. You all know that someone from the Bali, you know the phone of Bali, had just escaped. You know he was appointed some whatever they call, what is their position, whether it's a senator or whatever it is. He has just been abandoned that his position that was given to him. He's now in Germany. So I can assure you that those in the press move, they are in a position of committing suicide. So because they are in a position to commit suicide, we have to watch them very careful. So federal brothers and citizens of Ambazonia, we have reached a high level of our freedom. And so it is not a moment that we can allow it to. So we need to come together, and we need to finance our fellow brothers. We need to ensure that, and those who are trying to provide false information. So we have to be careful of those individuals, and especially those of the La Republique that may have infiltrated us around. So we need to pay close attention to those individuals that are surrounding us, because they are constantly scanning through us. And those especially with depressive disorder, they're constantly scanning around us, ensure that what are we talking about? What are we doing? And that is why, especially in ground zero, they are constantly disguising. They are constantly dressed like you. That is why I love Cobra Rose stages of dying. I love Cobra Rose stages of dying. And so when they reach depressive mood, and that is why you will see how this behavior is this behavior of depressed individuals, especially those of La Republique. So what they are doing now is that La Republique is constantly dressed like people with mentally challenged. So when people are in a depressed mood, people in depressed mood, especially La Republique, and that is why they dress in a sarcastic way. They dress in a, what is the word? So those with depressed, that is why they dress and in a shabby way, or whatever. I don't know how the particular word I can put it. So La Republique is dressing very poorly, and they dress like someone with mentally challenged. The essence is to infiltrate our citizens that have fought for the total complete liberation of the citizens of the Southern Cameroon, Ambazonian. So therefore, you have to be constantly watching those individuals that are depressed, especially within the high level of La Republique. And so we must work together to ensure that we eliminate La Republique out of our sovereignty. Our territory is a sovereign nation. United Nations was voted in 1961, recognizing the sovereignty of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. It was called the Southern Cameroon, former British trusted territory. And so because we cohabiting relationship is normal. Let's take, for example, like typically here in the state of Texas. You can meet a girl on the road and you agree to live together. That's what is called a cohabiting relationship. So Southern Cameroon has no legal document with La Republique. They simply cohabiting. And so it has come to the moment that Southern Cameroon decided to evaluate the relationship between the people of Ambazonia and La Republique. And it became questionable. And so since it became questionable, now they start, let's evaluate this relationship. Just like a girl that you meet on the street here in the great state of Texas may decide, let us evaluate whether are we heading to the right decisions. And so the citizen must decide. And so the people of Ambazonia ask La Republique, we need to evaluate, and they have the right to do so. And in doing so, instead of La Republique collaborate and work with the citizens of Ambazonia, instead he uses repressive military over the sons and daughters of the citizens of Ambazonia. And that is why we have reached the high level that we must eliminate La Republique out of our territory. It is the will of the people to eliminate any nation that is not. And so since we are working together, and we reach at a point where La Republique is in the depressed mode. You understand, someone in depressed mode, you have to watch him very carefully. You have to pay close attention because those individuals are constantly scanning around the surrounding. They have mental behavior, just like La Republique. You understand La Republique? They're constantly frustrated. They're constantly scanning our environment. They're constantly dealing with it. But we have to be strategically stand firm in our decisions. Now, I can assure you, it's not long from now, La Republique will reach the final stages of Cobra stages of dying. The problem of acceptance. Rose is an efficient theorist that I admire, and that theory fit this level, and that is why we are in a point that La Republique will have to reach Cobra theory of acceptance. In the Cobra level of acceptance, the individual has, after depression, after bargaining, after denial, after anger, they come to realizations. acceptance is the way to move forward. And I can assure the fellow citizens of Ambazonia that La Republique is in a point of acceptance. So what we can do is to magnify our continual pressurize using our Amba Defense Force. Make sure that we use the strategic area. We target La Republique in our territory. We make sure we dislocate every aspect of La Republique, and every individual that stand shoulder with La Republique, we need to eliminate that particular individual, because we have come to a point where La Republique will soon accept, because when the person is going through all the stages of Cobra Road, stages of dying, from denial, from anger, bargaining, depression, and then we arrive at a point of acceptance. We have used all the various power that be. United Nations absolutely failed to recognize that 1961, the office here in the United States voted overwhelmingly recognizing the sovereignty of the people of Ambazonia. And it is not something that I make up, because when La Republique was voted in 1960, Southern Cameroon territory was not part of that document. And La Republique has no legal authority over the claim over the people of Ambazonia. And so we are in a high level of determination, and that we need to eject La Republique out of our sovereignty and use whatever means we can. It is our goal, it is our vision, and to have a government that is accountable and over the citizens of Ambazonia. We have over 400,000 citizens of Ambazonia that are languishing in the forest. Some are in Nigeria, some are dying. And we have an occupier, La Republique, in our sovereignty. And we don't have to accept them and allow them to destroy our homeland. And that is why God gave us the opportunity. I am so proud to be citizens of these great nations. And we will use every talent of these nations, and then we will get La Republique out of our sovereignty, because that is the way we must go, and that is where we must deal with La Republique. And that is why I use the Cobra stages of dying, because it is an effective way that we must follow this pattern so that we can eliminate La Republique over our sovereignty. It is imperative that we use this strategy. And we also want to thank Nikki Haley, that has been elected as permanent representative to the Security Council, because United Nations is a dysfunctional organization. You all will agree with me, when Bill Clinton was the president of these wonderful great nations, the Kosovo crisis, when the Kosovo crisis erupted, he knew exactly what to do, and he immediately assigned a new strategy. And that is why the United States was able to maintain peace that is currently reigning now in Kosovo. And I cannot believe that you all are aware of Nikki Haley, and I think that she will strategize a policy to ensure that the peace and tranquility reign in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. We are not a subject of colonial territory. We are a nation. Why can't we be able to rule our own territory? Why must we be ruled by a foreign terrorist organization called La Republique? It is imperative that Nikki Haley see this, as she has been elected member of the Security Council, to use her visions and maintain peace and security around the world. United States may not be able to carry on all action against various nations on earth, but however, their policy, by simply recognizing that they voted in 1961, United States cast their vote in 1961, recognizing the sovereignty of the people. And now the people has risen and said, no, we must stand as a nation. And therefore, we are asking Nikki Haley to use her authority at the United Nations, and secondly, as the president of the Security Council, and act accordingly. And therefore, we are together. Fellow brothers and sisters, if you haven't been part of this momentum, I encourage you, because we are dealing with someone that is in depressed mood, and very soon the person will migrate to acceptance stage, according to the Cobra stages of dying. So it is important that you follow this truth, that La Republique is in the press mood and in acceptance. And then if you agree with me, you will acknowledge that at the beginning, I talked about planned suicide by La Republique in the Southern Cameroon territory, and the plan to eliminate La Republique Anglophone serving in La Republique military. The essence of those plans was to ensure that all the Anglophones should not reveal the planned suicide mission. And so in doing so, they're going through the process of Kobarot stages of dying. And in doing so, they have reached stages of depression and acceptance. So I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are watching, and I'm sure that those who have heard the message will spread the message. So we are at the final stages of our freedom. We are a sovereign nation, but we are asking the United States to immediately and unconditionally recognize, because they voted recognizing the sovereignty of our people of Ambazonian. So it is imperative that the United States Department of Defense, U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, the White House, we expect them to use their sense of judgment appropriately and recognize that the United States in 1961 voted for the sovereignty of the Republic of Ambazonia, and that the people and the sons and daughters all over has risen and said they want it to be recognized as the United States that participate in that deliberations. And I think that the United States will do it graciously with good sound judgment and good reasoning. It is imperative that the sons and daughters of Ambazonia has chosen they don't want to be part of La Republique. As in this regard, I want to take a moment to thank all of you that were watching this evening. It was Funton Daniel speaking live here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. I wish you all a happy, good evening.